Hello, everybody. I'll wait a few minutes and let people get settled, and we'll get started in just a few minutes. Wait about another minute, and then we'll get cracking here. I see some familiar names out there. Hello to former students. How are things, Darlene? Christina, were you my former student in high school? Is that the same Christina that I know from good old TMHS? A very familiar name. Do you have a question, Darlene? Or are you just saying hello? We'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. But if you have anything coming up, please send it in the chat. And I'm flying solo, so I won't be able to kind of navigate both very well, I would imagine. But let's get cracking. Get my presentation going here. Hello, everybody. All right. So we've all come here because of the new early childhood exam. I plan to go through and tell you a little bit about the company and look at the differences between the old and the new exam, and let you know how I'm structuring the new program that's starting in a couple of weeks. And then we can go through, questions and whatnot too. So hi, I'm Chuck Zucco. A lot of you guys know me. Some of you guys new, hopefully become good friends like a lot of my other buddies here who've been in, programs in the past. Just want to give you a little blurb about the company. Educational Testing Institute, ETI. I've been doing this since 1999. Small local business, public school educators. I got a few other people that teach classes or tutor for me, all special educators who've worked and do work in public schools. We've run programs for many districts and colleges. I just finished up with Endicott, a couple programs this spring. I've had, I don't know, probably close to 4,000 students, maybe more, over the last 24 years. So the business has gotten older, but I haven't. All right, just we'll get that out of the way. I'm still the same age I was. Can't pull that off, can I? One thing I've been proud of is that I've guaranteed success. So anyone who takes a class of mine, they can repeat the class for as long as they need. The reason why I do this is that I have a special education background, and I know things can be a struggle for people. And people come with many different issues and many different levels of education and abilities. So someone who has a significant learning disability or doesn't speak native English and has difficulty with multiple choice tests, I can't expect them to come into a class and just have me kind of, teach them for 8 hours and make up for 18 years of not knowing English or, having issues of being in a bad school district. So I've always made it more important for people to pass, spread the word, and invite their friends for the next program. Everybody wins. We're very different than other MTEL programs that I know of. Again, the curriculum is developed and delivered by special educators. We actually teach. It's very important that you understand what's going on in class. I know there are other programs out there. Some of you might have taken other programs where they don't let people ask questions, or there's really no, personal time. I'm available to my students. People text me and message me through Facebook all the time. We really start with the very basic skills and work through whatever we need to pass whatever particular MTEL we are studying for. Very big on test taking strategies. I got a system I've developed myself, and a lot of people get a lot out of multiple choice test taking the way we approach it that they never really learned before. I don't think people really teach in general how to take tests. So a lot of times I think the first time people are hearing any real instruction on this is through us. Again, individual case attention. Even if you're not a tutoring student of mine, I'm available for questions and concerns or comments. Our class sizes we keep small. You're not going to get 100, 150 people in your Zoom. And we've really built a nice community of teachers and educators, learners through, we have a Facebook group that if you're a student, you get invited in. And it's really been a nice place where people can have questions answered, get supported by their peers. And I've been very, very proud of it. We have about 300 plus people in there now after, doing this for a year or two. So different services we offer. We have Zoom classes. We have some programs that are self-paced video programs, individual tutoring available for all the things we do. And we started a new service this year for the Flex. Students have been asking me about this from the beginning, and we didn't want to get into it, but it's become clear that it's something that people need. So Andrew Frassa, who was with me on the last webinar, runs this program for us and works with people to help them pass the Flex, which is if you come close but don't pass, you may qualify for a Flex in certain MTELs. I've written a blog about this. We did a webinar on this. And if you're interested, contact me, send me an email, and I can get you the links to any information that you need. Here are the tests that we work on. I won't beat a dead horse with this. You can see them here. You can go to the website and get more details. I know you don't want to hear me talk too much about this stuff. And again, the self-paced video programs we have here, a list of different courses we offer. Tutoring for all the above, history, the high school history exam, and there are a few others that we can help with as well. I've often helped people with test-taking skills or strategies for many different MTELs that I don't even know the content for. It's really just about how do I structure my open response, what makes a good open response, and of course, those test-taking skills that most people seem to lack. All right, let's get into these exams, and I want to compare and contrast them a little bit for those of you who might not have taken both. The old test, which is now gone, had 100 multiple choice questions and 2 open response items, 4 hours to take it, 240 was a passing score. Those same stats are for the new test. All right, it's same structure. The content is quite a bit different. We'll get into the detail about that. 100 multiple choice questions, 2 open response, 80 and 20% breakdown of those. So each open response, 10%, just like the previous test. Plenty of time to take it. You get the 4 hours. Most people have plenty of time. and the passing score is still the same. Now, results haven't come back yet for the people who've taken this test. I think it came out, February 6th or so is in my mind. And what they're doing is they're running the statistics, right? They're trying to figure out what the standard deviation is from the mean score and trying to figure out where they kind of cross those lines in the raw score to figure out what raw score is going to pass. And then if there's going to be a flex on this, we don't know yet what the score for the to qualify for the flex would be. So that takes a long time to work out. An idea about how long it can take is they just released it's a new bio test and another test that was released back in October, November, and the results just were posted in April. So that's, 6 months. So I don't think this test will take as long because I think there are more people taking the early childhood, so they'll have more data to compile and they should be able to do it quickly, relatively quickly. I would hope that people get the results from the first round of tests by the end of the school year. It could come out tomorrow, but I'm hoping that, by July 1, we have results and have a good idea of what we're dealing with how to write certain things and what they're looking for the open response in particular. All right, so the breakdown of the actual content is a bit different. On the old test, we can see here, they had knowledge of child development, about 30 questions, and then there was children's lit and the writing process. And then half of the test, they called knowledge in the content areas. That was your history, math, and science. And the biggest difference that I see in the test as far as multiple choice is probably in this area here. All right, you can see it looks very similar in breakdown, but the format of the questions is very different. So they break it down a little bit differently. The child development is kind of grouped with the language foundations, they call it, and the writing process. So that, which was 50 questions before, is about half the number of questions now. And then they break down knowledge of math, history, science. And the old test, you had to almost as like a high school level content knowledge you needed to have. You were actually on the spot answering questions in science, history, and math. These questions are very different. And I think for some people, it'll be easier, but some people, I think it's going to be much more difficult. And as we go through, I'll explain why I think that and try to point out the differences so that it makes sense. Open responses, same structure, meaning that there are two, one on history, social studies, science, and then one on math, right? So two separate open responses, but they look quite different, and we'll see examples of those as well. All right, here's a sample question on the old early childhood test, right, on child development. They would ask things like, why do preschool kids want every product they see marketed to them in commercials? All right, so this is really a child development question and cognitive development, and it always reminded me of like a, Piaget type question. And we get into that a lot when we in the program. They also ask things like, what's the most common birth defect? All right, so there are a lot of questions that tested your knowledge on very specific cognitive, physical development issues. The new test, all right, things are different. And this is a good sample of what is different and how things are different. So same kind of content area, okay, but now they kind of give you a scenario, okay? So after providing students with explicit instruction and modeling, a second grade teacher creates a visual display of established communication strategies for students to reference during small group discussions. What do you mean by that? I agree with you because blank. This reminds me of blank. I disagree with you because blank. So you give a real life teaching scenario, and you have to think the teacher's scaffolding approach would most likely support progress towards which of the following instructional goals. So it's not testing you specifically about content in the area, but it's having you rely on what you know about child development and good instructional practices to come up with the answer. All right. So it's a very different approach from what it was before. And I think people who struggle with understanding dense questions and complex language are going to have a hard time with this test. The last test, if you could memorize content data, you could do okay. There's a lot of content, but this, you just can't memorize answers. We have to understand the question, and we have to really analyze it and think about how does this apply to good teaching strategies. Some of you who can understand the language, it'd be like, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake. So I think it's going to be, depending on your strengths and weaknesses as a student and learner, it'll be much harder or much easier. And it's, as I'm developing a program, I'm trying to find ways to help people with this kind of strategy. How do I understand what's being asked? And how do I apply my knowledge? Because if you're in the classroom, you'll be able to do this. I guarantee 95% of you would do the right thing in the classroom, but applying it to specific goals and knowing exactly what's happening when, like tying it into like, your classroom goals and objectives, that's not as easy on the spot. So we're going to be thinking about that much more in the current program than we ever did before. Content questions, history question. Which of the following excerpts from the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts best illustrates the state's commitment to the principle of popular sovereignty? Charles Darwin proposed a process he called natural selection, blah, blah, blah. What described natural selection? Math question, right? The toll booth, 25 cents per car, 50 cents a truck. Which of these equations will tell you how much money the people on the bridge collect? So again, this is about you knowing information, you doing the work, you knowing science, math, and history specifically. The new test, very different. Here's a math question. As a kindergarten teacher distributes materials for an exploratory project, a child says, "No fair. They got 8 and I only got 7. The child's statement demonstrates acquisition of which of the following mathematical skills? So it's more concept-based than content-based. All right, so what concept is this kid displaying that he knows? Not asking you to demonstrate a concept or to do the work. All right, it's a very different shift in the approach of the test. Based on the work sample and discussion. So they'll provide a work sample and dialogue between a kid and teacher. All right, so that's there. Based on this work sample and discussion, I don't have it here, the teacher's instructional approach supports students' development of which of the following mathematical skills? So again, understanding the content of what the teacher is trying to teach. Okay, so not what you know, but what you know as a teacher and how we're going to support and instruct students. Very different approach. History questions. There's a lot more social emotional learning stuff, citizenship stuff embedded in these questions in general, much more than the previous test. Connecting good leadership traits to student actions is an important component of the classroom lesson for which of the following reasons? All right, so why do we teach leadership? So the whys and the hows of what we do is important. Which of the following instructional strategies did the teacher implement to support the student's understanding of roles of citizen in the classroom? All right, so they gave a scenario And they said, here's what's happening in the classroom. Here's a dialogue between students. Here's an activity. Why is it happening? What's the teacher doing that's good? All right. So really digging down under the surface of a lesson is very important for this new version of the test. Science questions. This was kind of similar. There were many questions about the scientific method and experiments. All right. How would this experiment work? How should a kid do an experiment, or a class do an experiment? Very similar to the old test. And that's something that was something that kept in common. All right. Second grade students given a variety of materials to create a model showing the characteristic of a plant, water lily or cactus, and how it lives on its own. How would this activity supports understanding of, again, this concept of science? As part of a daily morning meeting, kindergarten children use observations to collect data about the weather. The teacher records the class's data in a weekly weather tracker. At the end of the week, the kids engage in a whole group discussion to compare any consistencies or changes in the weather. The teacher's instructional approach would best promote application of which of the following science and engineering practices. So again, same kind of things that they were looking for, different than the previous test. So the old test, very content knowledge, very memorization dependent. The new test, conceptual focus, pedagogy, teaching methods and strategies. In the old test, we had traditional math, history, science. Now we have scenarios that are meant for you to interpret and analyze. Lots of information to process, a lot of dense, language dense questions. And I think that people can't like analyze on the spot. Some people kind of panic under pressure, or just need more time to process things. Or if reading comprehension is difficult, these will be more difficult than in the previous exam. In the old test, you solve the problem. On the new test, kids solve problems, and the test taker analyzes the teacher, figures out the concept behind it, right? So all that stuff. Open response, very different. All right, very different experience. The old test, this is a very good example. This is on one of their practice tests, where they give you a little bit of information about whatever the content was, right? So here it's about solids, liquids, and gases. And they don't give you a ton of information. They say, hey, you're going to write an essay about this. And then they say, using a knowledge of whatever it is and development, three-pronged response, right? Describe a physical property of liquids, summarize a learning experience. So how would you teach this? And then explain by what I do fosters learning and development. All right, we had a nice kind of cookie cutter approach to this that you could apply to any question. Even if you didn't know the answer, we could pretty much steal you at least a 50% on this question. Little different now, unfortunately. So this is pretty much exact style of the Massachusetts question. This is in a different state's early childhood test, not an MTEL. I think it's from Arizona or something. Now they give you a scenario, right? So you're not writing the lesson plan. You're not developing a plan to teach. You're looking at a teacher's lesson and or a student's work. All right. So here we got Justine, 4-year-old kid, typically developing native English speaker. She's at the Language Arts Center, and she asked the teacher to look at the writing sample. So she writes all these letters. Okay. Her penmanship's a little better than mine, to be honest. So don't give her a hard time about that. So Mrs. Moran says, I'm glad you shared this with me. Please tell me what you wrote here. And then Justine says, oh, the sun is falling down because it's nighttime and the sky is blue and very orange. Clearly not what she wrote, but she understands some things about language, right? And so instead of developing the lesson and describing and all that stuff, we have to look at the kids' work and say, okay, tell me 2 skills. And on the MTEL samples, we've seen 2 strengths in the kid's work. And then talk about a skill that she will luckily develop next. Or on the MTEL, we've seen it say kind of a weakness or area of need the kid has, right? Very similar structure. And then they say, all right, give me 2 instructional strategies that will promote the kid's development in writing or whatever the concept is. That's the same as the MTEL. They want you to say, hey, I would do this and this, 2 things to help the kid along the instructional path or to teach them what they didn't know. And then very similar to the current MTEL or the recently passed MTEL, explain why each of these strategies would be effective. So the same kind of question we have here about why the experience fosters learning and development. All right, so similar, but quite different. And again, a lot of my students had difficulty with structuring the open response. So what we did is we structured that, right? We told people exactly what to write and how to write in a kind of a nice cookie cutter way, where we had learning experiences lined up and explanation of why those worked. And so you can kind of get a good score, even if you had no idea what was going on. This ain't so easy because you really have to dig into what's being done and understand where the kid is developmentally and, you know, math or English or history, science, wherever they're going to, what they're going to ask you about. So it's, I think, going to be more challenging overall for most people. And, you know, people who are good at ELA stuff will be fine here. The math might be an issue or vice versa. All right. So it's going to be a little more challenging, but we are working on, I've written up some things. I have some things pretty much done, but I still want to tweak it a little bit. So it's really ready to go for our first class that starts in a couple of weeks. One thing that they really stress on the MTEL is using evidence from the kids' work to support your answers in terms of the skills and the areas of need. All right. So you have to really depend on analyzing what the kid is doing and saying, does this well, doesn't do this so well. So that knowledge of development, which is not tested directly in the multiple choice questions anymore, you really have to know it for here. All right. So we still need to know the content from the old test more for application purposes on the new exam. Again, relatively challenging. So kind of breakdown, topic given, not much information. This one gives you a full scenario, work sample, and even teacher interaction dialogue back and forth. The first paragraph in the old one, you kind of briefly describe the topic, and you had to create a lesson, had to explain why the lesson was good. And this one, again, you're given a learning experience and you have to kind of analyze and evaluate it. You had to identify strengths, weaknesses, describe a little lesson plan or, you know, little strategies you would use for that student, and then explain why it is effective. So some similarities, but some very important differences as well. So programs, some of you have taken my early childhood program or some others along the way. The cost isn't going to change. The first class, I mean, the old session was 5 weeks, right? 5 2-hour sessions. I have this new one planned for 4, but I think as we go through the first time, I'm guessing we might end up going 5, and who knows, we might even go longer. Sometimes it's hard to really know until you get into the class and people are asking questions and you're seeing what works and doesn't work with your delivery, right? I mean, you guys are all teachers, you know. So 4, at least, maybe 5 sessions. The first session, just like before, is going to be on the test taking skills and strategies. All right, we have some kind of general test taking strategies and then some specific Pearson, MTEL, and actually MCAS. You can teach your kids this stuff for MCAS too. Specific Pearson related strategies. Okay. The old class, we did a week on history, a week on science, week on development math, whatever. In this class, it's going to be a little bit different because the content isn't really there, right? It's not heavy on the content like it was on the hardcore science and history, etc. So these sessions are really going to be about understanding, interpreting questions, understanding how to dig the concepts that are embedded in the questions. All right. So it's going to be a lot about reading questions together, digging through the questions, and understanding why answers are what they are. I also hope, because one of my things is I tell people, don't really look at the answer choices. Now, I know it sounds crazy. If you take the class, you'll understand what I mean. But there are times where we're going to have to break that rule. And those of you guys who've done the avoid the attractor with me, get it. Most of you won't. But there are answer choices that we can eliminate kind of by the look of them. All right. And I want to formalize a process on this. And let me give you an example of what I mean. My wife is, she wants to pass the ESL MTEL. And I don't know a whole lot about it. Okay. A lot of the ESL strategies are very similar to special ed strategies. So that stuff is a piece of cake. But I don't know anything about, the language of the ESL and the WIDA stuff and all that, right? So not a clue. But when I've studied this with her, I can get a lot of the questions correct, even though I have no idea what they're talking about, because I can read the answer choices and say, there's no way that's happening in the classroom. There's no way the Department of Ed wants you to do that in the classroom. You know what I mean? So I can do that pretty easily. My wife's a non-native English speaker, right? So her depth of understanding in English sometimes falls short of finding that or seeing those little things that I can pick up in the language. So I'm working on how to teach that and when to use it. All right. So that's what a lot of this process is going to be about. Okay. In the old days, I did a brief instruction on the open response because I had a cookie cutter way and it was like one size fits all, kind of easy cheesy, easy peasy, wicked cheesy, whatever the hell. So that we can't do as well anymore. So we're going to spend more time and have more intensive instruction and practice on sample open response questions. All right. Both programs guaranteed to pass for as long as you need. I think some people just want to come back and hear my corny jokes, but you're welcome. No problem at all. All right. So if you want to register, a link is here. The website's here. 24 hours, we have a 20% discount. My information is right here. Call me, text me, email me, the website right here as well. But let me shut down this and answer any questions that any of you might have. I see a few people have things here. Chat is disabled. Oh. All right. Well, I guess we have the QA thing here. So I guess we can't chat anon, but we can do the Q&A right here. So Diane, there is multiple choice questions. There's still the 100 multiple choice questions. They're just very different than they were before. All right. And Christina, I'm doing great. I hope you are too. I hope we can chat after this to see how you're doing. We'll love to catch up. What other questions do we have? Any about the test itself, content, the program? Anybody worried about the Red Sox? I certainly am. Don't look good. Okay, here we go. All right, if you've already paid for this, you're guaranteed anyway. Okay. If you've already paid the old program, you don't have to pay again. Just send me an email and say you want to come to the program that starts. I think we start the 31st of May. You're in. And Nicole. Yes, Nicole, I've been doing this for, again, 24 years, and I learned so much from my students. And in particular, early childhood people are the best at coming up with questions and teaching me more about the test. I can't even tell you the time I sat, this is before COVID, we would just sit around and people would share questions back and forth, and we would talk about potential answers and the concepts behind them with the, on the old stuff. The important thing about the Facebook group that I mentioned before is I post new information in there. So as we learn, and people who are in the group, they drop things all the time, right? Right in there. We learn new things all the time, and I update my materials as I learn. And so again, if you pay me once, if we learn a lot in 2 years and you haven't passed, you come back and you get that new stuff. All right. So that is part and parcel of what I do and how I work. Class is virtual. It's Zoom. And if you're already, so Taylor, if you've already signed up and want the discount, just send me an email and I will take care of you. And Catrice, how do you know what to study? So I am developing materials as we speak. Like I said, I have some stuff written up for our open response already. I got the test taking skills stuff done. It's really that stuff in the middle, right? I'm looking at what I have written already from the old program and developing new stuff that I'll be using when we teach. But when I develop a new program, a lot of it is like I'm kind of doing it on the fly. I'll have stuff and people may ask me questions, and that may lead me to think, oh, I should cover this. I learn a lot from my students, as I mentioned, and you will know what you need to study, and I'll be developing that for you as we go. And again, it'll change over time, and we get better because more people, more information, more questions. All right, so anyone who wants to join the class, start the program, just sign up. You can go to the website. PassTheMTEL.com is the easiest way to remember it. I can just see if I can type that in here. All right, it's also joineti.com, but PassTheMTEL, everybody should remember. You can sign up and register there. You can send me an email directly with any questions. Feel free to text me. My cell phone is right there. Great, Leslie, hope to see you. Ask any questions about the program. Here's how to join. I put that right in the chat there. I think you guys can see what I chat, right? That's open. So information is there, and the Facebook group that some of you guys are know about, you may join that when you sign up, and that's how we really, okay, let me fix this for you guys. That's how we really update information. All right, so I'm going to go back into the slide. The qualifying score won't change. What they're doing is, LS here, they're taking the raw score and saying, what raw score are we going to stick the 240 at, right? Because you're right where potential could change, but they're not. They're trying to find the raw score that will meet the 240, the scale score that is necessary to pass. All right. It's a big statistical thing. I'm not a great statistician, but I kind of get what they're doing. All right. Does that make sense? Like how many to get right, plus your open response scores and what raw score that give you. And they're trying to figure out what number that should be equivalent to the 240, right? That's how they scale tests. Nope. You can also join the communication and reading class 2. We're starting. Actually, you're lucky because I kind of lost track of time and we didn't start this week. We are starting this coming week. All right, so the first class is Monday. So 2 Mondays is the reading. And I know Mel is in that as well. Nope, Leslie, we used to teach the classes together, early childhood and general curriculum, but we don't now because they're so different. All right, but let me share this again here. So, all right, so there's the information. Boom, right there. Okay, for the discount and all that stuff. For years, I taught the general curriculum and early childhood classes together. I used to teach them separately, and I realized I was teaching the same thing to 2 groups, and I got smarter. And there's a little that didn't overlap. The early childhood had an extra week to talk about development and the math and a few other things. But they're so different now. The early childhood will be on Wednesday evenings, and the general curriculum is on the Thursdays for the multi-subject and the Tuesdays for the math. Will you be all set for what, Leslie? I'm not sure what you're asking me. Just send me an email, and I'll stick you in wherever you need. Because you've taken a couple classes, so I don't know which ones would be new or not. Okay. If you go to the early childhood should be on the website, unless they kind of screwed it up. If you go to the front page in the MTEL, let me actually jump to that. Let me jump to the website and show you, because it actually was off for a little while because the test changed, right? And then the program had to change. All right, so let me share the website here. All right. So if you go to MTEL here, come on. And the early childhood. Oh, see, it's jumping. Oh, look at that. You're right. They must have hidden it and they haven't unhidden it. Okay. So that is on me. Okay. Yeah, they hit it because it went down. They didn't fix it. All right. So those guys are in California, so they're still working. I'm going to send them an email right now and make sure that the early childhood is available ASAP. But people have, it's a way to get it because people have signed up over the last couple of weeks. So I don't know exactly why this has happened. But let me send an email. Okay. Email sent. Yeah, so it is there, but okay, early childhood Zoom classes. Excellent. So they'll fix that so that's more available. So I'm glad some of you found it. Thank you, Melanie. I like the website too. There will be PDFs to accompany the course. Again, they're in the process. What I do is I share everything via Dropbox. For the first class, I'll send an email with the Zoom link and the materials for the first class. And the rest of the material, there'll be a Dropbox share that you all will have access to. And, that's it. Every week, I'm guessing, again, I'm developing the program now. I've been building it over the last month or so. Every week, there'll be a different document or set of documents that we'll be using. Thank you, Bree. So any other questions, comments, concerns? This webinar is going to be, yeah, it's been recorded. So I'm going to share it on the YouTube, and I'll put the link in the group so my students can get to it. And I'll also send an email out to all you people who attended, so you can rewatch, get information if you need, share with your friend, get your friends to join. Again, the more the merrier. And we'll go from there. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Hanan, if you've taken this class before, if you've taken early childhood, you wouldn't need to pay. If you took the general curriculum, different class, right? So you wouldn't need to pay, but you have to let me know you're going to be here. So just send me an email. Even on the website, there's something that says retake a class. So send me an email, text me. I'd like you get my number, and just let me know. Email's probably best because I'll have your email there and I can put you right on the class list. All right, makes it easy so that I don't lose it. Like the reading program should have started this week, but I didn't. That just slipped my, I don't know, crazy, stupid. Okay. Excellent, Hanan. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Anything else? Questions, comments, concerns? All right. I'm going to wrap up. You're very welcome. Hope to see all you guys around, and, keep in touch. Thank you very much. All right. Good night, everybody. And Christina, send me an email, text me or something. So I'd love to see how you're doing. All right. Hope college is treating you well. Thanks. Take care, guys.